Hello, everybody. My guest today is Brad Miller. He runs Awareness Technologies, which provides endpoint security solutions for both home and businesses. With over 50 employees and offices in Westport, Connecticut and Bristol, UK, ATI both develops and acquires market-leading solutions trusted by millions of parents and thousands of businesses. Brad, you ready to take us to the top?
Sure.
All right. So just to be clear, it sounds like you're selling to two very different groups here. It sounds like parents are buying this and businesses. How's it work?
Correct. You got it. So we have underlying the same technology are multiple uses. And so the technology that we have allows us to record and control what an end user is doing on an endpoint, and then it sends that data to a secure website that can be viewed. So whether it's an employer wanting to monitor employee user activity for security reasons because they have confidential data, and we have plenty of people working remotely, and it's really hard to know who's taking what data with them where. This is a tool that employers can use to protect their confidential
Where, though?
data.
Is this like in the office, or it's on their computer or their phones, or what?
Correct. It would be on their computers, typically. And so I, as an employee, have access to all sorts of confidential data, like client lists, as an example. And if I take that information that's on my laptop and I'm home, and the employer has no visibility into what I'm doing with that information, then in theory, when I go to find my next job, chances are I will pull off a client list and all the information about what they have, how much they pay, when they're up for renewal, and that would be devastating to a company if their employees, when they left to go to a competitor, were able to have easy access to.
Now, is your business model a pure play SaaS model? People pay monthly for this?
On the consumer side, they can pay monthly, quarterly, or annually, and then on the corporate side, they typically pay annually, but there is a monthly option as well.
But they're both it's a SaaS play. They're both recurring revenue lines.
Sure. Yes, you got it.
Interesting. Okay, and then so help me give me a general sense here. Let's just focus on B2B for now. What's an average business going to pay you per month to use this technology?
Sure. So it's user based. So on an employer side, depending, it's volume pricing related, but let's just say on average it's between $70 and $100 a year per employee.
And that's what I'm trying to get a sense of, is how big are these teams that are signing up with you? Are they typically 2-3 person startups or 10,000 person banks?
Yes. All.
Okay.
All
what's it, just because we have a limited amount of time, what would you say a sweet spot is? Are we talking maybe, $1,000 a month for 10 employees, or?
Sure. So that's probably a very good average.
Okay. I did that math wrong, because you said one employee is $100 for the year, not a month, correct?
100, yes, 100 a year.
Okay, so someone paying you $1,000 a month, that would be a team size of
1,000. Sorry, 1,000 a year. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So 1,000 a year, or again, obviously we can divide by 12 to get that monthly. That's good. Okay, good. So walk me through kind of the timeline here. When did you launch the company? What year?
Well, the company was started in 2006/7. I bought it in 2010. And I've been running it since then.
Okay, walk me through that. There's a lot of people that would argue it's actually smarter to buy companies than it is to start them from scratch. You're doing it. What'd you see in the tool that made you want to buy it in 2010?
Well, the technology I thought was really good. So I was more at the time interested in the corporate space than the consumer space. My prior background was I had run and built a company that was focused on providing security to community banks. And the exclusive focus of that was focused on external security, stopping the unknown bad guy from breaking into a bank's network. And there was very little done at the time on internal security. And while most of the problems that exist are created by external people, most of the problems that cause a lot of damage are done by internal people, if that makes any sense. And so I felt it was the next frontier.
And how did you know they were for sale? I mean, explain to me how you reached out.
Well, I was running my previous business, and they were for sale. They had hired an investment bank, and they had reached out to me in my capacity as CEO of another business that was known to buy other security companies. And it was just around the time I was making a transition. I had previously sold my previous business and I had a 2-year transition agreement. So it was at the perfect time when I was leaving anyway. And so I decided to buy it for for myself.
And how did they, I mean, was it a SaaS company at that point?
Interestingly enough, it was a SaaS technology, but not a SaaS business model. And
Okay.
so they offered, so the technology was provided in a hosted way where the clients logged into a secure website to see data, but they sold it as a one-time
Oh,
license.
interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. So you obviously saw opportunity there.
Correct.
What did you value the company at back in 2010? That would have been 8 years ago.
Well, at the time we probably valued it at about 10 million. It was doing about 4 or 5 million in revenue.
Okay. And did you just do a very simple kind of AR math, or did you look at churn as well? I guess there wasn't really churn because they only paid one time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was no concept of churn, and so the technology was quite good, but the business model was under optimized, as I think you've recognized, and so we saw an opportunity to change that model, which we did, and very quickly. And now renewals makes up 50% of the revenue. And so the business has grown, a bit and has become, quite profitable as well.
That's great.
That's
Okay,
the
so
result.
you take over kind of in 2010. You buy it for say 10 million bucks using cash from your prior exit. They reached out to you when you were still at the older company and happened to just have really good timing. Is that all accurate?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So 2010 to today, how many customers have you now scaled to?
Well, we've also bought another business in the meantime.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
There is a pattern, but in the core business, we've we probably have at any one time, because we have new customers coming on and old customers dropping off. But at any one time, we probably have a couple 100,000 consumers, paying us either monthly, quarterly, or annually.
Okay.
Who have active licenses.
Are those, so that's obviously different than the business model. I assume that's different. Are those 100,000 paying still $100 a seat per year?
So I was talking about the consumer. That was the consumer side of the business, which obviously has more customers than the corporate side. The corporate side of the business probably has more like 5,000 customers.
Okay, got it. I want to spend the rest of the time hyper focusing on one of these angles because they're very different playbooks. Which one is more important in terms of revenue for the business? Like, does B2B make up more than 50%, or does consumer make up more?
Consumer makes up more, though the focus is on corporate. So we've kind of, we've spent the first few years maximizing the consumer side of the business. There was a radical change since 2010. I bought it in March 2010. April, Apple came out with the iPad. Consumer PC sales started to decline rapidly, and we had to quickly backwards create technologies to work with Mac, BlackBerry at the time. Then BlackBerry died, and then Android and iOS. So we spent those first few years trying to adjust to the changing operating landscape.
So what's the split today between, what is the business, the B2B revenue? Is it 30, 40, 50% of the business? What percentage?
Probably 75-25 consumer.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. So it's obviously, but the B2B is growing faster than the 75% that's consumer.
Correct. And it has more opportunity.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So what's happened in the recent year or two is that the technology that has typically been focused on what you said were 10, 20, 30 users is we're starting to see more and more larger companies looking to address the insider threat. It was typically only of interest to the small companies where maybe you had an owner like me, who was hyper paranoid about oh my God, what if my employee leaves and takes the client list? I would be in a very bad place. Bigger companies were less worried about that for some reason, but I think they're starting to realize And so we're seeing a shift.
So
And
David,
so,
can I multiply the 5,000 B2B customers you have times $1,000 a year? I mean, that is basically a $5 million run rate business today.
correct.
And what's that growing at year over year? So a year ago, what was the run rate?
It's probably growing at 20% a year.
Okay, good. So 5 million AR today would be, what is that, a $416,000 a month thing if you're growing 20-30%. So a year ago you were doing what, 330, 340 a month, something like that?
Sure, I don't have those numbers offhand, but you're probably in the ballpark.
Okay, but just to be clear, 20-30% year over year growth on the B2B side.
Correct.
That's great. Where's most of that growth coming from? Upselling new seats to the same customers or onboarding brand new customers altogether?
Mostly new customers and importantly, bigger customers. So it's not necessarily that the number of customers is growing rapidly. It's more that we are now focused on adding bigger customers and bigger. When you're used to selling 10 to 50 seats, and all of a sudden you sell 2,000 seats. And so you may not have added a lot of new customers, but you've added a lot of seats.
Yep. How many people are on the team today?
About 50.
50. And are folks all spread out or remote, or what's the deal?
They are fairly spread out. The core people are based here in Connecticut, but we do have people all over the U.S. and all over the world, for that matter.
That's great. Okay, so you said earlier you're profitable. Have you raised additional capital after you purchased it to fund growth, or no, it's all your own capital so far?
It's all our own capital. We have raised additional because we are profitable. We're able to raise bank debt, which is maybe slightly unusual for a tech business.
Who'd you work with, Hercules or Timea or what?
No, we use our local bank here in Connecticut, Webster Savings Bank, Webster Bank, and
How'd you convince them to do that? I mean, these whole SaaS Capital, Lighter Capital, Hercules, Timea, SVB, they all exist because traditional banks typically wouldn't loan to people like you because there's no hard assets to loan against. How'd you convince your local bank to do this?
Sure. Well, so there's two reasons. That's half the reason why they don't lend to people like us. The other half the reason they don't lend to people like us is because we're not profitable as a rule, as an industry. And so we were profitable. We were very profitable. We're dropping 30+% to the bottom line. And so to them, they see a lot of consistent recurring profits with a high percentage of revenue. And so, those lighter capital, SaaS capital, they're not focused on profitability. They're just focused on taking a piece of your revenue. And
so how big was that line, if you don't mind me asking, from the local bank?
It was 4 million at its peak.
Okay, interesting. And how did they get to that number? Was it a multiple of your MRR or something?
No, we could have gotten more, actually. We were just, when we bought the company in the UK, we bought it for a little over 3 million, and we already had $1 million of debt at the time. So it was just what we needed in order to acquire. So your initial question was that I raise additional capital, and we did for the purposes of buying a company, but not traditional capital. No, I
like it. Bank debt's a great way to go. It's non-dilutive. As long as you don't have to personally guarantee it, no covenants or warrants, right?
I didn't have to personally guarantee it. There was a very small warrant, and of course there are covenants because that's bank.
Okay. Well, no. There are a lot of banks, though, now that, Lighter, SaaS Capital, Timea, Hercules, ScaleWorks, where you can do these kinds of deals at, the 4 million kind of range where there's no warrants, no covenants, no personal guarantee. So that's interesting, your local bank today. That's great to hear. Tell me more about economics on these customers. So what's churn look like today on the B2B side?
Well, we have two types of customers on the B2B side. We have customers that are looking at solving a long-term problem and doing preventative maintenance, if you will, stopping the problem from happening in the first place. And there, the churn is, or our retention is, like 80%
annually.
And then we have customers who are looking to do a one-time investigation. And so there, the churn is quite high. Our retention is probably more like 40 or 50%. On those customers, because they've done what they had to do, and they're looking.
Yeah. That's not SaaS. I think that's a whole different model. But 20% logo churn annually on your pure, kind of your SaaS play with people that have intent to do it every single month. How aggressive are you being with CAC? So what are you spending fully weighted to get a new $1,000 a year customer?
That's a good question. And so our typical rule of thumb is we spend $1 to get $1.
Okay, so 12-month payback.
Yep.
Just to be clear, that's $1 of ARR or MRR?
$1. Well, most of our corporate business is ARR, so it turns out to be the same thing. There is a little bit of MRR sprinkled in, but yes, $1 on MRR on ARR. Sorry.
Yeah, you
ARR.
spend $1, and then it takes you a year to get that $1 back, but it's $1 and $1 out.
You got it.
That's great. Very cool. Okay, good. Any plans to make any acquisitions in the next, call it 12 months?
Hopefully.
What kind of companies are you looking at?
Well, we'd be looking more at companies on the corporate side. We're happy with our consumer business, and it's become quite a cash cow. And so where we're looking to grow now, as I said, is on the corporate side. And so,
yeah. And when you say cash cow, by the way, you said the corporate stuff is 25% of your revenue, and that's doing $5 million in AR today. So we multiply by 4. I mean, altogether, you're doing $20 million, taking 30% EBITDA to the bottom line.
Yeah, on a run rate basis, yes.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like basically $6 million in free cash flow annually, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
You're very quick with numbers.
Hey, when I do interviews like this, I'm talking to sharp people like you. I have to be real quick, otherwise I miss it. All right, very good. Let's wrap up here, David, with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
First, I think you mean Brad, by the way.
No. Oh, dude, wait. Have I been calling you the wrong thing the whole time?
Not the whole time, just occasionally.
Oh, God. Okay, you should correct me every single time. Sorry, I had yeah, that's weird. You're right. It is Brad. I had David pulled up for some reason. Brad, I apologize. Yeah, what's your favorite business? What's your favorite business book?
I have 2. One is Moneyball. Actually, I know it's not traditionally viewed as a business book, but it really is if you think about the principles behind it.
Yep.
And the other one is Blue Ocean.
Blue Ocean Strategy. Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
The 2 I like. One just from a thought leadership. I love listening to Simon Sinek. I don't know if he's I'll call a CEO. But the other one for interest is Elon Musk, recent Tesla buyer, and I find I enjoy his view on the world.
Good. Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the company?
Oh, for building the company. Wow, I didn't get that little qualifier. My favorite online tool so since we are so pay-per-click heavily focused, I would say Google Analytics is I spend an awful lot of time.
How much money do you spend every month on PPC?
Millions.
Okay, interesting.
No, years. That's sorry, hundreds of thousands a month. Yeah, millions a year.
Yeah. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
I am a very I'm a choppy sleeper, so it might add up to 4 to 6 hours in 2 to 3 hour increments.
And Brad, what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Married, kids. Yeah.
How many kiddos?
2.
2 kids. And how old are you?
I'm 55.
Guys, it's pretty good I can get a privacy guy to reveal all this information. Brad, what's your social security number? No, just kidding. Last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
My 20-year-old self knew a little bit of what's the judgment is better, or discretion is a better part of valor. You don't always have to win every argument. You don't have to win every battle.
Guys, you don't have to win every battle. Again, coming from Brad, again, launched his first company, didn't launch the company, actually saw an opportunity to buy a company back in 2010 for about $10 million in the security space. He knew that the model of tech would work great in a SaaS space. They weren't using a SaaS pricing model yet, so he bought it. He's now grown it to about 5,000 companies on the B2B side using it, paying $80, $90 a month, so doing about $420,000 a month in revenue. That's up from, call it, $350,000 a month just a year ago. So that business doing $5 million in terms of run rate, that's 25% of the total business. The other 75% known as consumer security. So called a $20 million business overall. They're also making obviously acquisitions as they scale, using some bank debt to do that. Hugely profitable, 30% EBITDA, team of 50 spread all across the country, 20% logo churn annually as they look to scale, spending about $1 to get a new dollar of ARR. So healthy economics. Brad, thanks for taking us to the top.
All right. Thank you, sir.